morning. Inzamam Rashid, Sky News.
The Nationals have backed the Prime Minister's plan to achieve net zero by 2050. Joining us live now out of Canberra is Liberal MP Tim Wilson. So what's your view on that? The Nats are on board. Tim, good morning.
Good morning, Peter, and I think it's fantastic news. Only the coalition can really be trusted to address the challenges of climate change while taking the whole Australian community with us. And of course, that includes critically the role of the regions and of course providing the jobs and opportunities that can be available there under a net zero future for Australia. And so I think this is welcome news. Obviously, the Cabinet still consider the final proposals, but it's a huge step in the right direction.
Part of the quid pro quo, though, is providing some kind of regional safeguard moving ahead, but there's no real way to guarantee that, is there? Because you might lose the next election, then it's up to the Labor Party and they might reverse some things.
Well, we know the safeguard, Peter. It's to vote Liberal and National in the different electorates in which people vote, because we're the only ones that can ultimately be trusted.
You can't provide guarantees, can you?
Well, what we can do is lay out a clear agenda where we're going to back regions every step of the way so they maintain jobs and opportunity and thrive in a future where we have lower greenhouse gas emissions. And of course, it's absolutely true. If you vote Liberal or you vote National, you're more likely to be backing Australian communities, Australian jobs, and particularly rural and regional jobs, because we want them to succeed. And if you vote for another political party, you're working to undermine that. And as you say, there's no guarantee that they'll back supporting rural and regional communities.
2050, the target is very much a minimum going by international standards. Does there need to be something more ambitious for 2030?
Well, we've already outlined a 2030 target at the last election that was endorsed by the Australian people. And of course, we know that there are going to be projections against the trajectory of Australia cutting greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 released shortly of all of the information that's already in the public square. Everybody is projecting we're not just going to meet, we're going to beat, we're going to smash our targets for 2030 early. And of course, we'll wait and see what the official government data says. But of course, that will lead to a conversation about our ambition. But it's a clear sign. Australia's emissions are going down. They've been 20% off 2005 levels. And there's a myth out there that people think otherwise. Australia's emissions are going down. And the reason we're having this conversation is because Australia takes commitments and delivers on them and cuts its emissions and is making sure that they continue to go down.
According to Newspoll, though, people want more ambitious targets. Are you worried about those figures out today?
I'm like all polls, there's only one that matters, which is election day. And I think that there's a lot of state wash, to be honest, is my view, through a lot of these news poll data. The real issue is, what is your plan to be able to deliver on emissions cuts? There are a lot of countries that make policies based on intent. We do it on the basis of outcomes. And we've set a clear target which we're meeting and beating, and that's the basis in which we can have a conversation about whether we go forward.
Just on the Victorian government, what do you make of Daniel Andrews' position that unvaccinated people will basically be shut out for the next year?
I think we need to be cautious about our approach. I don't think we want to create divides within society. Now, the biggest thing we want to do is make sure that we build confidence for those people who've chosen not to get vaccinated to do so. This vaccine, which I've had, I presume you've had, Pete, as millions of Australians now have, there isn't the consequence or the concern amongst those that are vaccinated. We're getting on with our lives. And I think we want to show to those that aren't that they can have confidence in these vaccines and the potential of boosters as well, because it's the best pathway to avoid the very serious health risks of coronavirus.
We are seeing leaked emails this morning from Tennis Australia that basically says unvaccinated players can compete at the Australian Open in Melbourne next year. That would be a double standard, would it not?
Well, I haven't seen those emails, but when it comes down to it, there can be, like we have at the moment in federal parliament, if you're vaccinated, you can come up. If you're not vaccinated, then you do 2 weeks of quarantine to demonstrate that you're safe. Now, of course, these rules and requirements should be consistent. There shouldn't be double standards, but I haven't seen those emails, but you can build in other mechanisms to address it. But the simplest, the easiest way to solve this problem is to go out, get vaccinated, and then you can just move on with your life.
But unvaccinated tennis players coming from other countries, should they be able to play at the Australian Open, in your view?
Well, again, I haven't seen these emails, but I think what we need is consistent rules. And I believe that rules should be consistent. So there may be requirements that put extra burdens and extra obligations on people based on their vaccination status. But the easiest and best thing is to go out, get vaccinated, and then you can just move on with your life.
Tim Wilson, thanks for your time.